The chamber had been silent for centuries, its stone walls etched with symbols no one had deciphered. The air shimmered faintly above the circular pit, a blue light pulsing like a heartbeat from deep below. Aliens of the consortium stood at the edges, whispering in hushed tones, none daring to cross the etched floor. It was known as the Maw of Ages, and their legends warned that any who entered would be swallowed by eternity. Among the onlookers was Serath, her green skin glistening faintly under the bioluminescent glow. She had seen entire fleets dismantled by human audacity, yet this was different. Humans had been invited to study, not to meddle. But the man who stood near the edge now didn't look like a scholar. His name was Darius Holt, and he carried himself like someone who had already made peace with death. Serath raised her voice, unable to contain her alarm. "Step away, human. That is no place for you." Her words echoed sharp and commanding, but Darius didn't so much as flinch. He crouched, studying the carvings around the portal, tracing his fingers along the grooves. They seemed to hum beneath his touch, as though the structure itself recognized him. A ripple of unease spread through the gathered aliens. Some drew back, their eyes wide. To them this was sacrilege, worse than foolishness. The portal had claimed the lives of their bravest warriors in ages past, swallowing them without trace. Even the memory of those losses carried fear. Yet here was a human crouched at its edge, curiosity outweighing caution. Darius finally looked up, his piercing gaze sweeping the crowd. "You've been circling this thing for centuries, haven't you?" His voice was steady, laced with disdain. "All that fear, all that power, wasted because none of you ever thought to just jump." The words cut like blades. Serath's stomach knotted. Did he not understand the gravity of what he mocked? "You cannot comprehend what you face," she hissed, stepping closer, though every instinct screamed to back away. "That portal is older than your kind's first tools. It devours life. You would throw yourself into oblivion for pride." Darius stood tall, adjusting the straps of his worn suit. He wasn't armored, not truly. Just layered cloth and reinforced plating, a far cry from the ceremonial exosuits the consortium had used in their own attempts. Yet his simplicity carried a weight, a rawness. "I'd rather face what's down there than waste another century staring at it. Someone has to know." Murmurs rose in the chamber. Some aliens were furious at his arrogance, others frozen in horrified fascination. Serath could only stare. His words embodied the one trait she could never reconcile about humans, their relentless drive to leap, where others hesitated, even if it meant annihilation. She had always dismissed it as recklessness. Now, faced with Darius, she wondered if it was something else entirely. The blue light surged, brighter than before, as though responding to his defiance. A deep thrumming hum filled the chamber, rattling the bones of every being present. Many stumbled back, their hands clutched over their ears. Serath resisted the urge, though her temples burned. The portal had never reacted this way before, not even when consortium champions had dared it. Darius turned toward her briefly, his expression softer now. "You said it devours life. Maybe it does, or maybe it's been waiting for someone who doesn't cower." The words struck her harder than she wanted to admit. His voice carried no malice, only certainty. It was infuriating. It was terrifying. Before she could reply, he stepped closer to the edge. Gasps erupted. One alien shouted for the guards to intervene, but none moved. Even the armed among them recoiled, unwilling to approach the Maw when it pulsed so violently. Serath wanted to scream, to drag him back, but her legs locked as though the portal's will pressed against her. The chamber grew hotter, air shimmering like a furnace. Darius spread his arms slightly, feeling the energy prick at his skin. Sweat glistened on his brow, but his posture didn't falter. To him, it wasn't terror. It was invitation. The contrast between him and every other being present was undeniable. Serath realized with horror that she couldn't look away. Her chest tightened. Why did he look so calm, so certain? Every instinct told her he should be trembling, begging for retreat. Instead, he gazed into the abyss like it was a horizon. The silence between heartbeats stretched unbearably, each one pounding in her ears, and then he closed his eyes. Serath's throat constricted as she saw his knees bend, his body shifting into motion. Time seemed to stretch, the air thick with inevitability. The human leaned forward and pushed off with effortless resolve. His body arced toward the heart of the portal, his form swallowed in the rising glow. A scream tore itself from Sirath's lips before she could stop it. The sound was raw, primal, echoing against the chamber walls. Around her, others gasped or wailed, but none were louder than the pounding in her own skull. She staggered forward, hands gripping her head as though it might keep the sight from searing itself into her memory. The portal roared, its light exploding outward in blinding brilliance. For the first time in her life, Serath felt the floor tremble beneath her feet, ancient stone quaking as if awakening from endless sleep. Dust cascaded from the walls, the entire chamber alive with furious energy. She shielded her eyes, heart hammering, expecting silence after the blast, expecting the finality of loss. But the portal did not consume and vanish as before. Its glow held steady, steady and stronger, as though tethered by something unyielding. Something that had not been there until the human had leapt. Aliens fell to their knees in terror, whispers breaking into frantic cries. "He awakened it," one said. "He defied it," another breathed. Yet Serath could not speak. Her voice was locked behind the truth blazing before her. The portal had never endured anyone's passage. But this time it did not close. It remained alive, pulsing, thrumming, and in that endless blue light she realized the unthinkable. The human might have survived. Her hands trembled against her face, torn between dread and awe. For all their warnings, for all their fear, for all their history, the Maw of Ages had finally answered. Not to an alien, not to the consortium, but to a single reckless human who dared to leap. The fall was endless. Darius felt himself suspended between heartbeats, weightless yet pulled by something far deeper than gravity. The blue light enveloped him, swallowing his body in waves of energy that tingled against his skin. For a moment he feared his body would tear apart, scattered atom by atom like the aliens had warned. But instead, the sensation shifted, warping into something like warmth. He landed not with a crash, but with a slow, impossible drift, his boots touching stone that glowed with veins of silver light. His lungs burned, then cleared as though fresh air had filled them for the first time in years. Around him stretched an endless cavern of crystalline pillars, each one etched with symbols that pulsed in rhythm with his own heartbeat. He blinked, uncertain if it was real or hallucination. The silence here was not silence at all. It was layered with whispers, faint echoes that slid along the edges of thought. He strained to listen and swore they formed words, though none were in any tongue he knew. He rubbed at his ears, then realized it wasn't sound. It was thought being poured into his mind. Alien, ancient, watching. He turned slowly, scanning the cavern, half expecting to see Serath or one of the guards behind him. Instead, he was alone. The realization struck hard. If the portal had chosen him, then he had no witnesses, no guarantees. Just a leap and whatever lay ahead. His pulse quickened, not with fear but with the thrill of revelation. The whispers grew sharper, pressing against him. He staggered back until his shoulders brushed a pillar. The stone flared, brighter now, searing light across the cavern. Instinct screamed at him to retreat, but his curiosity held him firm. He pressed his palm to the glowing surface and felt a jolt travel up his arm, slamming into his chest like lightning. Visions burst behind his eyes. He saw galaxies spinning, civilizations rising and collapsing like sandcastles in waves. He saw great beasts of flame and shadow tearing across starfields. He saw the Maw itself, a creation, not a curse, built by a race that had vanished long before the consortium had even learned to crawl. His breath hitched as the truth overwhelmed him. The portal was not death. It was passage, a gate across the fabric of time and space. And it had been waiting, dormant, for someone to accept its invitation, for someone reckless enough or human enough to step inside. His lips parted in awe as the understanding solidified. All those aliens had been too afraid, too reverent to see it for what it was. He collapsed to one knee, clutching his chest as the images subsided. His pulse hammered in his ears, but clarity burned through the fog. "This isn't an ending," he whispered, his own voice shaky yet resolute. "It's a beginning." The words weren't just for himself. They were for Serath, for the consortium, for anyone still watching from above. The cavern trembled, dust cascading from the pillars as the whispers rose into a chorus. They no longer pressed against him. They beckoned. He stood, straightening his shoulders despite the ache in his bones. He had come too far to falter now. Whatever lay beyond, he would face it. Humanity had always thrived on stepping into the unknown. He walked forward, his boots striking sparks from the silver-veined stone. With each step, the cavern expanded, unfolding like a living thing. Crystalline walls split open to reveal corridors of impossible geometry, angles that twisted yet aligned, paths that led both forward and outward. His head spun trying to follow them, but his body moved with an instinct not entirely his own. At the end of one corridor, a vast archway loomed. Its surface rippled like liquid metal, reflecting his form in broken fragments. The whispers hushed as he approached, anticipation buzzing in his veins. He reached out, hesitated, then pressed his hand against the shifting surface. The reflection snapped into clarity, not his face but Earth's skies. Blue, vibrant, filled with clouds drifting lazily across the horizon. His throat tightened at the sight. Home. For a heartbeat he thought the portal had led him back. But then the image fractured, showing not just Earth but dozens of worlds, each with skies of different colors, landscapes alien and breathtaking. The realization dawned. This was a network. A lattice of destinations built across the stars, hidden and abandoned, waiting for rediscovery. The Maw of Ages wasn't a tomb. It was the key to exploration, beyond anything humanity or the Consortium had ever imagined. His knees nearly gave way beneath the weight of it. Behind him, the cavern pulsed as though approving his understanding. The voices returned, softer now, less alien. They did not command, they asked. Would he step through? Would he claim the path, knowing the risks? His hands trembled, but his resolve hardened. Humanity had always been defined by its leaps. This would be no different. He took a deep breath, every nerve alive with anticipation. The archway shimmered brighter, waiting for his decision. He thought of Serath's eyes filled with fear, of the Consortium's centuries of wasted hesitation, of the chance to prove them all wrong. Then he whispered to himself, voice steady and proud, "If not us, then who?" With that, Darius stepped forward, disappearing into the liquid metal. The cavern roared in response, the pillars blazing with light as the portal claimed him. For an instant, there was nothing but brightness, and then silence. Far above, in the chamber where Serath and the others still knelt, the Maw of Ages did not close. Instead, its blue light stabilized into a calm, steady glow. The aliens stared in disbelief, realizing for the first time that the portal had not consumed but transformed. And somewhere deep within, Serath's trembling lips formed the words she never thought she'd say. The human lives. The sensation of crossing the archway was unlike the fall. It wasn't descent or drift, it was dissolution. Darius felt himself unravel and reassemble in the same breath. His mind stretched thin across an infinite horizon, then snapped back into form. When he opened his eyes, the cavern was gone. He stood on soil beneath a twilight sky painted in hues of violet and gold. Two suns lingered on the horizon, one fading, the other rising, bathing the land in overlapping shadows. Around him sprawled a valley of towering crystal spires, their edges sharp as blades, their centers glowing with a steady inner fire. The air hummed faintly, alive with energy. Darius staggered a step forward, then another, steadying himself. Every instinct screamed that this was real, not illusion, not dream. He bent down, scooped a handful of the reddish soil and let it slip between his fingers. It was coarse, metallic, yet warm. His lips curled in a grin. Humanity had never seen this place. He was the first. Then he heard it. Not whispers this time, but a low, resonant sound, like a heartbeat echoing through the valley. He turned, scanning the crystalline forest until his eyes settled on movement. Between the spires, shadows shifted, tall figures emerging, their forms bending and refracting in the crystal light. They were not flesh and blood, but constructs, beings woven of light and stone, their faces blank yet not unfeeling. Each step they took resonated in the ground, amplifying the hum until it vibrated in his chest. They did not rush him, did not threaten. They simply encircled him, forming a wide ring, their towering bodies catching the twin suns like mirrors. One of them stepped forward. Its surface rippled, and a voice entered his mind. Not alien whispers, but something more direct, more deliberate. "You are not of the Makers, yet you bear their path." Darius swallowed hard. He'd expected silence, maybe danger, not dialogue. His throat was dry, but he forced the words out. "I don't know who the Makers are, but I came through your portal. I had to know what was here. The construct tilted its faceless head, light flickering within its core. The makers built the lattice, then they vanished. We remained as wardens. For millennia, none dared follow. Until you, the ring of beings pulsed with light, their resonance deepening. Darius felt the weight of their attention pressing against him, like standing before a jury of gods. For the first time since leaping into the maw, doubt needled at him. What if this was the end after all? But then the construct leaned closer, its core flaring brighter. Human, you are not of the makers, yet you are. Our kin, reckless, unyielding. The lattice has chosen. The word struck him like a hammer. His chest tightened, his thoughts racing. He wasn't just the first through, he was being claimed by something older than history itself. He straightened his back, drawing in a slow breath. If I've been chosen, then tell me, chosen for what? The construct's core flared so brightly, he had to shield his eyes. When the light dimmed, its voice carried not just to his mind, but through the valley itself, to awaken the gates. To walk where even the makers faltered, to decide if this lattice becomes a bridge or a weapon. The valley shook as the spires blazed in unison, their light shooting into the heavens. Above, the twin suns dimmed, replaced by a tapestry of stars, and woven through them lines of fire connecting world to world. A map of the lattice stretching farther than his mind could grasp. Darius stood at the center of it all, trembling. For the first time, the weight of his leap truly settled on him. He had not just braved the unknown, he had opened a door to countless others, and now the responsibility of what lay beyond rested on him. Do you want Chapter 4 to reveal how Serath and the aliens above react to the portal stabilizing, and perhaps her choice whether to follow him? Above the moor, the viewing platform shook as a beam of light split the clouds. Serath shielded her eyes as the archway blazed with a brilliance it had never shown before. Gasps rippled through the gathered aliens, their voices choked with awe and terror. For millennia, the portal had only devoured, never returned. Now it pulsed like a living star. She pressed against the railing, heart hammering. Could it mean he survived? Could the human, reckless, foolish, stubborn, have crossed into the lattice and lived? Her chest ached with a mixture of hope and dread. Around her, guards raised their weapons as if expecting the portal to spit out nightmares. No one else dared imagine a miracle. The archway steadied, its surface no longer turbulent but clear as glass. Through it shimmered a vision, vast crystal valleys, twin suns, and a lone figure standing before radiant beings of light and stone. Serath's breath caught. It was him. Darius alive, framed against a world no one had ever seen. The crowd erupted in disbelief. Some cried fraud, others claimed omen. Consortium priests fell to their knees, chanting prayers that had lain dormant for centuries. But Serath said nothing. Her gaze was locked on Darius's form, on the way he stood tall even as titans surrounded him. Not prey, not lost, chosen. On the other side, Darius turned as though sensing her. His image wavered, but their eyes seemed to meet across the impossible distance. Serath's lips trembled, a word escaping before she realized it. Human. The constructs beside him raised their arms, and the valley lit with starlight. Threads of fire wove between the heavens, a cosmic map unfolding across the sky. Serath and every alien watching saw it too. The lattice stretching from world to world, gates hidden in plain sight across the galaxy. The maw was not alone. It was one of many. Panic spread. Diplomats shouted of danger. Generals barked orders to seal the chamber. But nothing could stop the truth. The lattice was awake, and humanity had been the key. Darius had done what no alien dared. He leapt, and the universe answered. The portal pulsed again, this time with rhythm, like a heartbeat that matched Serath's own. A whisper brushed her thoughts, faint but undeniable. It wasn't alien. It wasn't divine. It was Darius's voice carried across the lattice itself. If not us, then who? Her throat tightened. He wasn't asking. He was inviting. The decision clawed at her, the safety of her people, the weight of tradition, the chance to witness history firsthand. She had spent her life fearing the portal, revering its legend, and now a single human had shattered it with one reckless leap. She stepped toward the edge, ignoring the guards' protests. The light seared her skin, but she didn't stop. For the first time, she felt the maw wasn't hunger, it was promise. And if Darius could brave it, why couldn't she? Her hand brushed the air, and it shimmered with warmth instead of dread. She closed her eyes, heart pounding in time with the lattice, and whispered into the blaze, "If not us." Then me. With a final breath, Serath stepped through, following the path the human had carved. The portal roared like a living thing, swallowing her whole. The chamber fell silent as the light dimmed, leaving only stunned faces and the echo of her choice. On the far side, in the valley of crystal and stars, Darius turned as the air rippled. His grin broke wide as Serath emerged, her form trembling but alive. For a heartbeat they simply stared, two beings who had defied a galaxy of fear, and then, for the first time in eons, the lattice itself shuddered with approval. The bridge had opened. Humanity had begun.